We eat food out of necessity. We also eat for joy, for taste, and for celebration. But at the end of the day, the most fundamental reason for why we eat is necessity. And I believe that the same thing is true when we're working to inspire others to get involved, helping us to build healthy food environments. And people do get involved for a variety of reasons. Maybe they wanted to show up because all of their friends were there. Or perhaps they were required to. Or maybe I called them so many times that they felt like they had no other choice. They had to come. But what I've seen in my experience is that what really gets people involved and what gets them to stay involved is the feeling that they are absolutely necessary. So for example, I work with two awesome fourth graders in Red Lodge, Montana, Xander and Davis. And last spring, they helped come out to help us fill these garden beds, these new garden beds for the youth garden with soil. And each time they've come back to the garden, day after day, they never cease to remind me and everyone else in the garden that they were the ones who filled those beds. And without that, we couldn't be planting, we couldn't be eating, we couldn't be growing. And recently, I've been working with a group of 7th graders on a vermicomposting project. And initially, they were not as excited about those worms as I was. But what really got them going and fired up was the recognition that if we wanted to get some kind of school-wide composting project started, it was going to have to be them in the cafeteria, educating and assisting and really getting other students involved to make this happen. And so we brainstormed and kept on working, and they came up with some incredible ideas. They decided that our composting system needed to go on the roof so that we could avoid all of the bears that are after our compost in Red Lodge, Montana. And in Red Lodge, it's not just the young people who are getting energized and empowered by this feeling of necessity. This is Martha out at a local farm. She's leading a group of volunteers who came out to this farm, which last season unexpectedly lost its garden manager. And so these volunteers came out in full force to fill that gap. And we started calling it the Great Produce Rescue of 2012. We even had t-shirts. And the reason that they came out to the farm was because they recognized that without them, 7 acres of produce would have been lost to the weeds and eventually plowed under. So they came out to weed, to irrigate, and to harvest because they were able to recognize that without them, there wouldn't be farm field trips, there wouldn't be local food days, and there wouldn't be taste tests in the cafeteria this fall. And the third group of incredible people who I work with and who have been inspired by this sense of necessity are the farmers. They're the farmers who show up and want to work with school districts, not only because they understand that there's this incredible new market they can tap into, but because they recognize that without them, without their unique connection to and their understanding of the land, that we wouldn't be able to have access to healthy food, and that they are so central to this really big goal of getting kids access to healthy food. And that understanding is what gets them to show up to local procurement meetings, to work to figure out the nitty-gritty details of how we can really make this work. And it is really hard work. But I think what gets us going, like this student here, is the feeling that if we don't do all we can to get these carrots out of the field, then who is going to do it? And it's that sense of we are so needed that motivates all of us. And so, like those students and the farmers and the volunteers who I work with, we FoodCorps members are also human. And like those students, those volunteers, and those farmers, we're also driven by this desire and this sense of feeling necessary and so needed in our communities doing the work that we do every day.